Yo, yo, yo. We'll talk about one of y'all's favorite baits today. I made a new kit on my website, shopblat.com. Last year I didn't do this. I was waiting on this new frog to come out. The Z-Man has a new frog out called the leapfrogs. You guys saw me use it. You didn't know I was using it last year, but you saw me use it in one of the videos where I fished with Gerald Swindle at Lake Guntersville, fishing over some of the grass. It was a prototype at that point. But this is called the leapfrogs. And for you guys, this time of the year when the summer is hot like how it is now, and you like to be one stick Nick like how I am, if I got one rod in my hand and I'm just gonna fish all day and get the bites that I can get with one bait, it's gonna be it right here. And I'm gonna break some of the myths. I'm gonna show you the setup, the rod, reel, line that I use for frog fishing, and break some of the myths that you guys have about old Kermit the Frog here. Let's step back a little bit. I'm gonna tell you a little bit about the Z-Man leapfrogs. It comes in two different sizes, and you have two different style frogs. You have a popping style frog, and then you also have just a regular walking style frog. Right now I've got just a walking style frog on. If I only had one, it would probably be just a regular walking style. Two sizes, 225 and 275. Obviously 2 1/4 inches and 2 3/4 inches sizes. So a bigger one and a small one, both in the popping and the regular walking frog like what I had here. I know how it is. Most people want to know what rod, what line, how you fishing it. What I want to show you today is, we're not actually going to do a whole fishing video. I'm going to just show you some of the stuff that I like to throw a frog around, because I know I live in the upstate of South Carolina. When people think about frogging, especially even in the video you saw last year where we smashed them on this frog, it was around grass, lily pads, hydrilla, milfoil, matted out vegetation. And most of the time when you pull this thing out, that's where your mind goes. Is, all right, where's the grass? Where's the lily pads? Where's that at? Well, don't box old froggy into that. All right, don't box the frog into just being a grass vegetation bait. Catch a lot of big bass and fish right here at home on this bait in open water. I don't mean offshore open water, but what I mean is not around grass, around docks, shade, around shallow cover, places you would normally fish a popper. You can put this bait in places where you cannot put a popper. And so it makes it a very unique, special tool that I like to have in my hands when I'm being one stick Nick in the summertime. So let's look at the setup, all right? Very simple setup. First of all, the setup that I'm gonna have when I'm fishing a frog, a hollow belly frog in particular, in grass versus what I'm gonna have for as a setup right here at home, skipping it around docks and laydowns and underhanging banks. Totally different setup, all right? Not even remotely close. So right off the rip, my rod is not as stiff, it's not as heavy, it's not as long, it's not as big, it's not as masculine as my hydrilla frog rod, okay? What I've got right here, this is just a 7'2" medium heavy action. I know I blew somebody's wig off right there. It's like, Brian, you gonna have a frog with a 7'2" medium heavy? Yes, I am. I'll tell you why. We'll get to that in a minute. Let me finish telling you about the setup. 7'2" medium heavy. I've got a just a Lew's Tournament Pro. It's a 7:3 to 1 gear ratio reel. Sometimes I go to high as the 8:3 to 1 gear ratio that Lew's makes. I just happen to have my 7:3 to 1. I actually prefer the 8:3 to 1. I just don't have it in this video, so sorry. 30-pound test braid. Talk about why I do that. 30-pound test braid. And I just tie it with a double Palomar knot connection knot to my frog. Prefer the 225 because I feel like it skips a little bit better. And if they're getting a little funky, I'm fishing in super clear water, I just feel like they want to get their mouth around it a little bit better. Backing up to the guys that I blew their wig off talking about I got a 7'2" medium heavy. You mean to tell me, Brian, you ain't got an 8-foot extra heavy broomstick piece of steel, like totem pole type of rod? No, I don't. Let me tell you why. I'm fishing in clean water, folks. Like once the fish comes up and gets the frog, I skip it under there. Goes under the dock. 5-pounder comes up and get it. I ain't got nothing for him to get into. He might wrap around the floating dock sponsons or get around a piece of wood. I don't have a lot for him to get around. So what I don't want to happen is, if I already got braid, I'm already an aggressive hook set kind of guy. if I don't have any give, when that big fish comes up, or a 2.5 or a 3 pound fish, he comes up, skipping under there, boom, pop, 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 boom, comes up and gets it. And I set the hook with all of that might and power and action in my rod and these biceps that I got right here. What happens a lot of time, especially when you're open water frogging, set the hook, nothing gives, you jerk the fish up out of the water, you jerk slack in the line, you don't get a good hook set, because when you set the hook, you hit it with so much force that now you got 10 foot of slack in your line, the fish jumps and gets off. It works against you guys. Very stiff rod when you're fishing in open water with braided line and a frog, it's gonna work against you. You need a little tip. You set the hook, boom, it just folds down like a rubber band and it keeps it pegged. That rod keeps tension on it, and it'll just bloop, goes back to action, brings that fish out of the cover, whatever you're fishing, the docks, laydowns, underhanging banks, and that's how you bring them out of what I call my heavy cover in the clear water body fishery, like what I have here in South Carolina. So that's why I don't use such a stiff rod. 30 pound test braid, why I got that? 30 pound instead of 50 pounds, 60, 70, whatever. 30 pound test comes off the spool a lot faster. I live where water's clear. I need to make a little bit longer skips. I need that bait to go a little bit faster without having to put a lot of action on it. So I'm gonna be able to skip a little bit better with 30 pound test braid. One thing I will warn you guys about, with 30 pound test braid, if you're not real good with skipping, don't use 30, use 50. 50 will come off a little bit slower because it's bigger diameter, more friction, so it's not going to exit the reel quite as fast. 30 pound test, smaller diameter, is going to exit a lot faster because it has less friction. There's less grab, less drag. It's going to go faster, faster, faster. But 30 pound test, when you blow it up, it ain't getting no out. It's going to get a knot in it. It's going to be a lot more difficult to fish with. But if you guys are comfortable with the bait caster and skipping baits under structure, you're gonna be fine with 30 pound test. If you're just getting used to it or new to it, try 50. 50 is gonna be your friend, okay? Let's tie the connection knot. Obviously, I've already got this guy tied on, but I'll tie it for you guys just to show you exactly how I'm rigging this guy, and then we're gonna get out. And I'm not gonna spend 8 hours showing you how to catch one on a frog right now because it's 95 degrees and I'm tired. I want to go home. But what we will do is I'll show you what I'm looking for. I don't like to show people my little sneaky holes at home anyway. All right, so I'm just going to show you what I'm looking for and leave it up to you to do the work. Line tie. All right, let me give myself a little bit more slack here. Line tie. Stick your 30 pound test braid in one time. Stick your 30 pound test braid in 2 times. Everybody can count 2, I know, on this video, right? Let me give myself a little bit more slack here. Uh-oh, I'm okay, guys. Okay. All right. This knot is called the double Palomar. If you can tie a Palomar, you can tie this knot too. So now I've got 2 strands of braided line going through my line tie right here, okay? Looks like that. Guess what I'm gonna do? I want 4 strands going through that line tie, especially with 30. I'm gonna take my bunny ear side of my Palomar knot and run it through the line tie once again. So now I have 4 strands of line going through my line tie right there. And I'm just gonna do my standard Palomar knot. Overhand knot with the loop in, cinch that joint down. Listen, a lot of people don't wet your braid. It'll make it a little stronger, I promise you. It lubricates the line, it'll make it stronger. Take your loop in, bring your bait through the loop in. All right, what I like to do, wet it again. Cinch that bad boy down, kill him. That's it right there. All I gotta do next is take old buddy, get your line cutters, whatever you like to use. If you guys have got bad teeth, you can go ahead and try to cut it with your teeth. I ain't cutting braid with my teeth. Leave a pretty good size tag in on that guy, especially with 30 pound test braids. When you go to cinch it down, you could have a little line slippage there. Then that's it, all right? Leapfrogs 225. Check it out at shopblat.com. I've got 2 colors on there, my favorite colors for every situation. Brown leopard and black leopard, I think is what the 2 colors I have. Popping and walking frog. I got all of them over there. And that's my setup right there. It's very simple, y'all. I ain't got really much to show you how I rigged that bad boy. I don't like to bend the hooks out on them. You know, you have a lot of guys, and especially on this frog, the way they designed it, super soft right out of the pack. Some guys have bent the take the pliers and bend the frog points up, the hook points up. I don't do that. I think the hook's designed to work exactly the way it is. The body of the frog is designed to work perfectly. I'll leave it just like it is and get plenty good hookup ratio. You notice this frog, you see how I got those legs trimmed? One's longer than the other. That helps it walk, all right? For you guys that fish in open water frog like I do, the shorter your legs are, the better that frog is gonna walk side to side. These little legs create water resistance, all right? So when you're working it, trying to get it to go, walk the dog side to side, the smaller the legs, the wider that walk is gonna be. The more legs you have, the tighter it's gonna be. If I'm fishing in heavy vegetation, hydrilla, I keep all of the leg on. Tell you why. Your frog won't sink as much. Creates more surface tension, and your frog won't settle down in the grass as much. But when I'm out here in the open water, not fishing around grass, I like to leave those legs on, trim them pretty short, and it's gonna let it free it up to swim left to right a little bit more. It's a little trick. Let's go look at the stuff that I like to fish it around. You'll see this is the perfect bank right here. This is what I'm looking for. When you think about frogging and no grass, no vegetation, this is pretty much what I'm looking for. You can see I got some, this is a steeper bank. You got some overhanging trees, a little bit of undercut on the bank here. The biggest thing is you see I've got a little shade right next to the bank. You'll be surprised how shallow these fish you get this time of year. What I'll do is I'll take that frog and I'll just fish it just like you would a normal topwater, but it'll allow me to put that bait in places where I can't put a popper or any kind of other topwater bait. And plus it's just a profile that they're not used to seeing this time of the year. So this is perfect. The biggest thing that you're looking for is shade, because most of the time fish are feeding them brim this time of year. So if you ever notice, guys are ever brim fish, brim are almost always hanging around shade, overhanging banks, things like that. And the other thing is fish feel hid where the water's darker. They feel hid. They don't have a lot. If you look down through here, there's really not a lot for them to be on besides the bank and the shade here, besides the docks and the shade here. That shade makes them feel protected. It feels like an ambush point. When there's not structure there, shade is the ambush point. That's why you're trying to target and put that bait in and around that shade. Other thing is, don't always look for a lot of inconsistencies on the bank. One of the things that fish use, especially on a lake like this, is water depth as a ambush point. So even if it's a slick bank, what I'll do, you'll see me skip that bait almost all the way up to the dirt almost, and I'll work it all the way back, because a lot of times what happens is, even though I'm skipping that bait up there in literally inches of water, your fish are set off in 4, 5, 6 foot of water, looking towards the bank, looking towards the brim, looking towards the panfish, and they use the bank to pin the bait fish towards. So that's why I always skip my frog. No matter how clear the water is, I'll skip it all the way to the bank. Even though you don't see structure up there, those fish are setting off just a little bit. What they're doing is they're looking towards the bank, looking for brim. They're gonna pin them up against the bank. That's how they ambush their prey, especially when they don't have structure, when they can't set in a tree, set in some grass, or set in any kind of structure. That's how they actually attack their prey, is using water depth as an ambush point. Let's look at the hot spots when you're talking about floating docks. Everybody hates floating docks. It's not from an area where there's floating docks, right? Well, I love floating docks. You got several components here on a floating dock. You see that? The catwalk, all right? Catwalk that's connected to the bank. There's times where the catwalks, that's the juice. I'm gonna tell you why. This catwalk is not gonna be one of the ones that I really like. I like those catwalks that are a little bit lower to the water. You know why? Because of what we talked about, shade. Lower the catwalk is to the water, the more shade you're gonna have. But sometimes the fish get on the catwalks. Sometimes your ambush point on a floating dock like this is gonna be the pontoons. Like you skip that frog in between the pontoons. Those fish, the brim will get out here deeper sometimes. Sometimes the fish in the brim are more towards the back. That's when they're gonna be on the catwalks. Sometimes later in the day, hotter it gets, the brim and the fish are gonna move out towards the end of the docks in deeper water. That's when they get out here on the pontoons. That's when they get out here on the deeper shade where they can kind of settle down a little bit deeper. So there's several ambush points when you're talking about docks. And you just kind of got to be very observant of which ones they want. Right now I'm fishing on the last docks in a creek turn in the back of a creek, and I'll just skip it around. Anywhere there's shade, I look for anything that's got shade on it. So right here on the corner, I'll skip it under. I'm always patient with my cast. Wait till you get the boat in the position to make a good cast. But I'll just skip it around anywhere there's shade. I'm gonna move pretty fast. You can see I'm already done with that dock. They're pretty aggressive this time of year, so if you've pitched it in there a couple times and you hadn't got bit, keep on moving, go on to the next dock. Look at that. That's juicy. Look at that. Under hanging banks like that. Skip it up under there. Dude, was that on cue or what? Remember what I told you about shade? Skip it under there where that shade is. Dude, that was almost like it was fake. You can't fake a topwater bite, folks. You can't fake that. Shade is what it's all about. Skipped it under there to where there's shade. It's where the brim is. Those fish feel protected when you got an underhanging bank like that. That's why I like to throw that frog under there like that. A little juicy, he's on his way to what we call a belly shirt. He's on his way to being a little younder. He'll be a younder one day. But it goes to prove to you, shade is the overwhelming factor. I will fish 20 creeks a day only looking for shade when I know this bite's going on. And that's the key. Run that shade. Those fish are aggressive. You see how quickly that fish bit that bait as soon as I pitched it in there. That's how you do it in frog territory in the summertime. Make sure you check out shopblat.com for the new Z-Man leapfrogs, 225, 275. I'll leave a link in the description box where you guys can go and shop these baits. But I promise you it's a good frog, something we worked on a long time, and it's right. So I know these tips will help you catch more fish on a frog, make you have a lot more fun when you're out there.